speakers talking about in some detail. And we are being recorded, so welcome everybody, and I look forward to hearing some amazing things from Rachel. Amit is here who's organising these webinars. Thank you, Amit. He'll be posting anything in the chat, and I'd encourage you to post your questions as we go along, and I'm sure Rachel will be happy to answer them at the end or as she goes, which is entirely up to her. Yep, Sean's already started on that. And so, yeah, welcome everybody. This recording will be up on YouTube in the next day or two, because I know a lot of you will be following it that way. But first of all, I wanted to introduce Rachel Parsons, who's an amazing individual, an amazing speaker, has a wealth of knowledge, and I learn something every time I see her, speak to her, or listen to her. So it's really an honor to have her here today. I'm sure she'll be introducing herself, but she's a BCorp specialist. She's got her own organization, which is the What If Department, which is a great title. And she's an owner or part owner in New Forest Escapes, which is an amazing agency based in the UK. But she's got lots of strings to her bow, and I'm sure that's going to come out in this presentation. So welcome, Rachel, and we look forward now to hearing you speak and watching your presentation. So over to you.
Thank you, Bob. You're so lovely. I always sort of listen to you and think, who's he talking about? I'm sure it's not me. Let me share my, a little bit more about me for those of us who aren't here today also, is that I consult to companies doing their B Corp certification, and I've been around in social entrepreneurship and sustainable tourism and regenerative business, I would say, for a little while now. So it's been a real privilege to work in that sector and see the creativity of people's problem solving as they try and remove carbon and inequality out of their businesses and really work for a better world. And it really is amazing to see that creativity. So some of this work is my own work, and some of this is repurposed examples. I'm sure Paul's company or one of his companies will appear in my my deck at some point in the future, but not yet, because I work with one of his businesses too. So I am going to share my screen and we are going to crack on. Where are we? Okay. Alrighty. I'm pretty sure you can see my emails, which is great. Hang on a second. Let me just try that again. What happened there? Right. Behave. Oh, come on. What happened there? What happened there? What happened
there? It says it's starting. It wasn't showing anything.
Oh, was it not? Okay. All right.
No.
I'll try that again. Just check behind the scenes. That'll be why. There we go. I'm just going to do that entirely, and then it won't be a problem. Come on, you. Right, let's try this. Okay, that feels better.
Yeah, fabulous.
Okay, right. Slightly Lego themed today, people. Always inspired by Lego. Alrighty, so we're going to crack on. So smile tools is a phrase that I coined a little while ago and sat on for a bit thinking, I don't know how to quite phrase this. And sometimes I still feel a little bit like this. Smile tools are essentially the way that I feel that we need to communicate tourism, and the methods and the principles that we need to use to follow to make what is frankly an unpalatable subject often for our guests into something that they really appreciate, that takes them to a different level of customer satisfaction, aka human happiness. Okay, because it's not, for them, they don't call it customer satisfaction, they call am I having a good time or not. We really have to remember that, and it's so easy not to when we're sitting on the business head of the side of the fence, and we forget sometimes what it's like to be our guests. So I'm gonna whiz along through this as we get going. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so 15 years ago, I started up an agency with one house. it looks like this now. It looks quite nice. We've got 50 plus houses, and although I don't work in it day to day now, I have done every single job, probably like most of you here in the who've got to the sort of upper echelons of business. I've rodded the drains, I've cleaned the houses, I've done the marketing. I feel like I've got you know, dirty fingernails from tourism. Not in all sectors, but in enough that I've spoken and been with enough guests to know majority of what they love. We achieved our BCorp certification in February 22, and most of the time it looks like this: fairly ordered, well-connected, organized business. Sometimes it looks like this, when you drop the bundle and the entire book stack falls on the floor and you're sitting there thinking, oh my God, how did that happen? Quickly, let's put it back together and see if we can do better. So just like any business, we're a normal business that makes sense. And I threw this slide in here. I might come back to it. I threw this slide in here because I wanted to talk about this, which is why it has a different background, because selling an eco holiday, which is often what people say when they want to go into tourism, is a tricky thing. Personally, I don't think that eco is a good way of selling to new customers. From the results and the understanding and the research that I've gone through and spoken to a lot of people, particularly in the Travel by BCorp group, which I volunteer for quite extensively here in the UK, about, I think it's about 2 billion quid's worth of business turnover generally in the group. And nearly everybody says, don't sell it as the intro. Don't get people into your business through green. Do it and convert them the second time round, which is by far and away the best and cheapest conversion tool that you will have. Because selling it up front is really difficult, because you are going to have to communicate eco through photography, which frankly is almost impossible, and we'll look at that later. You're going to have to use language which is really difficult that most people don't understand. You're going to have to generalize language across about 4 or 5 different demographics, all of who have highly differentiated demands in terms of eco. And you need to not be saying, I'm beautiful about eco or green or sustainability or regeneration or anything that comes under that banner. You need to be saying, here are the things that I'm doing, and here are the things that the people who are experiencing that say, AKA reviews, because that is 1,000 times more beneficial, because there is so much greenwash and BS in our industry. There is so much kickback and damage from people over claiming in the past that there is a huge amount of trust issues. People do not believe what companies say. So you can't go out there and say, yeah, we're doing this, that, and the other. We're great, we're great, we're great. You need other people to say that about you. So until you've got that within your sales channel, until you've got that within your sales narrative, it's very difficult to go out there and say, I'm beautiful. So that's why that really quite ugly slide is in there, because I didn't want to forget it. Right, moving swiftly on. So the first thing I want to say was, when people travel, they are their fantasy self. They are going into that place of, I'm the best person that I am. And when they're on holiday, they have an exploring mindset in their head. They are going to interact on holiday in a vastly different way, but they're going to primarily be more selfish than they would normally be on holiday. When I say use your wand, I want agencies who are taking people on holiday or representing them or hosting them to know their superpower, to know that by steering things like people's spending, they are significantly going to add value to their area. And I know that's obvious, and I know you already know that, but in terms of the social and environmental benefits that you can create from this, don't underestimate how much you can actually change. You can really change significant amounts just by changing what you reference, where you buy from, where you suggest they go to, how they get to you in terms of travel. And all of our companies have amazing marketing departments. They're all creative people. This is where that creativity pulls together, okay? These are the people, all of your team need carbon literacy training. They all need some form of eco and sustainability training, and Bob's Environmental does that brilliantly. Your marketing guys are the guys that need to get behind this and have confidence, because the dial between greenwashing and BS to actually wonderful conversations that are generative, that are empowering to people, that reduce their level of anxiety, are really significantly and important conversations. So you lean into that. Don't forget that you already have all the skills in your business, but you may not have the knowledge to communicate it with confidence. So make sure that you lean on that first. We've got screen. Is it changing, Bob? Have I got a new picture?
Yes,
It's working.
it's changing.
Okay,
It's changing.
fine. I've got it. Okay, so the next one was make sure you have the context for where you're going in tourism. So customer satisfaction is where we're all going, but we have to be aware of anxiety within our society. And the statistics here are massive, okay? And I'm not going to read them to you. But helping people feel better is absolutely key to their happiness. And it's one of the key things that you can do when you concentrate on customer satisfaction, is to concentrate on how you are taking care of their anxiety. And these are anxieties that are not spoken about. These are anxieties that when people put stuff in the bin and they feel really, really guilty, they're not necessarily going to phone you up and go, oh my God, I just had to put all my food waste in the bin. How dare you? That's terrible. They won't do it because they'll be probably non-confrontational. They might leave you a bit of a stinky review. But these things stack up, and they're often quite little things that when they stack up, they might say some kind of generalized thing in the review that it wasn't very impressive, this, that, and the other, blah, 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 or they might pick out a certain thing, but you can be absolutely sure it's the tip of the iceberg. There'll be a load more stuff underneath that they're not happy with. So in tourism, these statistics show up in the booking.com stats that are widely shared around the industry. More people want to travel sustainably. They're more likely to choose sustainable accommodation. They want more authentic experiences. They particularly hate waste, and they talk about their carbon footprint, but they may or may not do anything about it. Yeah. So this is where the statistics start to show up, like my slightly uncomfortable feeling Lego man. How it shows up in society is slightly different. And these are statistics that you'll be possibly more aware of because these hit headlines. Suicide rates in young people are massive. 83% of young people in the UK have medium to severe eco-anxiety, which is in the census of 2022. And census is everybody has to answer that if they're over 18. These are really significant numbers. Other coping behaviors show up in obesity, depression. There is significant economic uncertainty going on. And that's why you'll have more and more focus from governments doing sort of the panic, grow, grow, grow voice. And actually, consumption is not a way, as we know, to prop up an economy, but it's a patching mechanism. And so this, again, shows up. People avoid the subject of behavior change. Safety often is not choosing. And so when you have owners and you're communicating with owners about how they might do something, often they'll sit on the fence or do what they've already done because they don't know what to do. So the purpose of agencies and the very, very powerful position for agencies is to recognize that. The same with the hosts. Make sure that you recognize and you support people to choose or even to not choose because you've already done the thinking for them. And you all know what doomerism is. World on fire, world's going to flood. The newest, film is all about how many times you can, flood your house before you don't cope. I think there's one of those on Netflix. So our special problem is that I call it cake or lentils. We are in hedonistic industry and we are trying to sell sustainability. This is not easy. So cake or lentils. Here is a lovely cake recipe for green velvet cake. And I think, Bob, or Amit, can you see my mouse on the screen?
Yeah.
You can, amazing, okay. So this is a really interesting idea. Cake is the good stuff. This is the instant gratification that we have in our lives. These are the things that we do because we want to feel better. And when we're on holiday, we're going to eat more chocolate, have more ice cream, drink more wine, get up later, go on that expensive tour, take that flight, treat ourselves, right? Because in our heads, we've been good for 51 weeks of the year, and now we're going to let it all go because we've been good for 51 weeks of the year, and now it's time to treat ourselves. This is our narrative about self-care, and it's important. How we actually do these things can be wildly different to achieve self-care, and I would encourage you to think about the self-care piece because that's actually what we want to achieve. But the old narrative of tourism is that you can do it with creating damage in the world. The new narrative for tourism is that you don't have to do that. That's where the creativity comes in. So what we're aiming for is we're aiming to sell instant gratification, not as lentils. Nobody wants to eat lentils. We're going to go for healthy cake. Beetroot brownie. What's this one? Green velvet cake. And the words that we're looking for here in this are swapped, instead of, replace, increased, increased, decreased, decreased, omitted, omitted. Okay. And very important at the bottom, 4 times this person got it wrong before they got what they wanted. So we have to understand also, rather like making a new cake, we're going to mess it up a lot of times. And that's absolutely okay. It's part of the journey. So I focused on this for homeowners. I can, Bob, and you need to give me a bit of a steer here, switch between owners or agencies. And I don't really mind which, but I'll start here. And so on the healthy cake principle, we've gone for the baking metaphor, and you can presumably you'll share this slide set as well, won't you? Yeah. So I'm not going to go through this, but this is the title of essentially most of the slides. So in order to get the happy guest, I look at it through the magic triangle lens. Okay. So in order to get a happy guest that's going to come back with us and stay with us multiple times, or at least book with the same agency again, we need to be doing these 5 things. Okay. We need to be helping them feel guilt-free. This is the first one. Nobody wants to feel rubbish when they go on holiday, but it's an unspoken rubbish. Okay. So we have to really focus on what happens. How can we remove guilt from people's travel experiences? Okay. Everything from transport there, including flying, to the actual experience itself, to the things that they eat and do on holiday. And move those from being guilt orientated or not to contribution orientated. Okay. So feel when you go to an eco resort or you go to an amazing place where it's organic, this, that, and the other, and it's wonderful social support of the local community, you can feel like you're contributing just by being there. Okay, just by going there, you feel like you're contributing. That's very important. Adding to that, we've got that you emotionally, you feel a much deeper connection to the place, and you're achieving happiness through the higher ideals of happiness, not just consuming stuff. Okay. And second, and lastly, fourth one is that it has to be the right value for that person at that time in their lives. Okay. And that could be Butlins, that could be a lodge, it could be a caravan holiday, or it could be going to a 7-star resort in Dubai, and everything in between. Okay. And it has to be fun. The combination of all of those things in that magic triangle is that you have to have fun. And one of the things I've recognized is where businesses focus on sustainability, which is doing less bad, is that they forget about the fun part. They forget about creating awe in people's lives and fun. And therefore their stay, this is where don't sell sustainability to the first people that come along, try not to, that's a risk, is that it's very difficult to get across that fun side easily. Now there's a guy on this call, Paul, who I had a look at his website a little while ago, and deep within the website, there was a glorious picture of a tandem bicycle. And I looked at the bicycle and I was like, oh my God, that's the best idea ever. If I was going, that's the thing that would make me stay at his house. So I had a load of pre-filters. Is it in the right place? Is it the right cost? Is it the, beds look comfy, all that stuff. And then I saw the bicycle and I was like, wow, these guys really get it. Like, this is going to be hilarious going off and doing this experience. And that was the thing that made me want to book his property. Yeah. So selling that awe and fun up front can be straightforward, like here's a bicycles, but it can also be quite difficult if you're talking about design and style and some of the deeper things that matter to people, which they're not going to communicate with you about. So the positioning for sustainability and selling this idea to people in the first place, I'm going to go with this as a lead in, even though I'm saying to you don't generally sell it up front, is that it's about pristine air to breathe. It's not about reducing pollution. It's about pristine places to visit. It's not about national parks. It's about clean and clear water to enjoy and play in. It's about nature and wildlife like it used to be. And there's a really important phrase in there, like it used to be, is all about selling nostalgia. And nostalgia is very important sales piece for people who are in their older years, who want to buy an experience for their younger generations, their family, and show them what it would have been like for their experience. That's why people increasingly go to the furthest parts of the world to find unpolluted places. Safe walking and cycling, very sensory, tasty, everybody wants to eat. Safe and welcomed, don't forget that. Happy communities, the social agreement that communities have to host people is very, very important. That's an absolutely critical piece that we do all know about. So on the happiness side, you're talking about feelings, experiences, imagination, nostalgia, sensory. Yeah, this is all really useful ways in to a subject which can feel a little bit bland and difficult for people. So when you're working with your marketing teams, this is where you want to be working with them first. Yeah, this is a good place to start. And the second place to start with as marketing teams is know what makes people happy. They will know what makes them happy, but there's theory around this stuff. Use the theory. Use ChatGPT if you need to. Gratitude, volunteering, really interesting. Good health, trying new things, smiling, forgiveness, right? This tells us if smiling makes people happy, that our signage needs to be brilliantly funny, if it's possible, because you're going to be able to use humor to carry messages that may perhaps not be as welcome to the guest, or that will help you cut through as a company to create connection with those people. And humor is something that I do not see on booking.com. Maybe I see occasionally a little bit on booking.com. I might see it on little pop-ups and stuff here and there, but I don't see it in the main. Airbnb, better at humor. My own company, New Forest Escapes, we try and use it in the illustrations, but the phone message is absolutely diabolical right now. And I keep nagging the girls to change it, but it's an opportunity because it's a free thing that we can change. I think you get my point. So we're going to look at the details of that as we go through. So I also wanted to talk a little bit more about the idea of sustaining something versus regenerating something. And that really means sustaining is focused on less bad, so that it assumes that we've already got to a place that we want to keep because where we are now is perfect, and that we need to do slightly less bad, and less bad is going to be a perfect version of perfect, right? Versus regeneration as an idea which is significantly much better, both for people and for planet. And I've broken it down and made it super, super simple, risking oversimplification massively. But in terms of, for tourism, this idea of sustainability is eating less cake, right? You still stay alive. You might not stay alive for very long, but you're going to stay alive if you eat less cake. Doing more, the focus would be on eat healthy cake, redesign the cake, as opposed to eat less of the cake. In terms of the owner's mindset, sustainability is about minimizing impacts, whereas doing more good is focused on actively restoring and redesigning in large parts, rethinking how you actually are creating purpose and delivering it. The messaging is do less bad, be less guilty for sustainability. That's not a fun thing to sell. It's a really difficult thing to sell. And that's why often marketing teams get stuck with it. Whereas if you are talking about be awakened, learn, have an extraordinary connecting experience with nature here, guess what? That's really easy to sell. And that's where you see cut through from some of these big brands who are really pushing. And those are often in the Travel by BCorp stable, you really see quite a different marketing approach from those companies, even though they might have major issues like they have to fly people to where they're staying and they can't get around that problem. People will take that option over a luxury holiday. They'll take a good holiday because they want to have that experience of contributing. And energy, use less versus use what we make. Pollution, we use less toxic products. Oh, yeah, well, that's great, isn't it? That's the horrific thing to really say. You know, really what you want to say is we use products that do no harm and contribute X, Y, and Z, i.e. we put it in our pond and our frogs love it afterwards.
And Rachel, can can I just interject there and say something to reinforce that point? So
Absolutely.
it's something that we use here in Italy at Casal di Fichi is we have a swimming pool that's cleaned by an ozone system. So we don't use the chemicals, but we don't sell the ozone system to the guest. We sell the result of it, which is a pristine pool with no chemicals that's clean and nice to swim in, because that's what they're interested in. Is that the example that you
exactly
think?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And then in best practice communication, you would have some little access message that would say, want to know how we do this, question mark. Here's it takes you to a YouTube. Here's an interview with Bob being a complete geek about his swimming pool. Brilliant. Yeah, or some information, because then you as an owner really have the opportunity to put across what you are a geek about. And guess what? That's exactly what they want to see. They might only watch 5 seconds of it and go, yeah, Bob's a geek. I trust him. Totally brilliant. Right, I'm going on holiday there. And that's actually all they might want to do. But if someone wants to do that with their own pool, they're going to watch all of it and come on holiday and pick your brains about it all. Which is what Tess at Sawdays says, actually. She says their Canopy and Stars brand, particularly, people will go on holiday to see how off-grid living works and then interview the owners for it. And that's definitely one of their sources of guests. It's quite interesting. So you can actually use that for deep green demographics, super greens, ethical consumers, which is about between 12 and 20%. You can actually really use that as a brand. So nature, conservation versus rewilding. And then on the customer satisfaction thing, the sustainability message would be, come and stay here, but go out to get fun, go away from the guilt. And people will do that. They will go to a place, they'll feel guilty staying in, and they'll go out to find their fun. Whereas when you find people going to regenerative tourism places or places that really deeply live their values, like yours, Bob, I bet they don't go out that much, because being there is the experience, because it's a complete safe haven for them. And that's a different experience. And then I'm guessing, Bob, you get a very, very high booking rate. What's your rebook rate?
We have a 90% book direct rate and a 65% repeat rate.
Yeah, that's a really, really good example. Yeah, perfect. And well done you. I know that Intrepid, who are a B Corp, I remember Zena, who is, I can't actually remember what exactly her job title is, but something like CEO for EMEA or something like that. She was saying that they have something like an 85% rebooking rate for people who have been on one of their experiences, because once they have been there and done it, they don't want anything else ever again. And a lot of the travel by B Corp companies have those very, very high rebook rates. It's quite an interesting way of doing it. So in terms of this, if anyone wants to read it later, they can. But this is about the sustainability messages. You'll see the negatives. Take short showers, eat less, buy less, don't fly, don't use the car, switch off the lights. They're all quite guilt-orientated messages, and they're not sexy. When you are fully giving back and you've designed it so that your swimming pool is working on ozone and it does feed the frogs truly, then it's take a long shower. We filter and reuse the water. Our food is grown here. Ask for a tour. We try our electric massage chair. I saw that somewhere. We're on solar. Use it as much as you like. Happy days. You know, no guilt. It's a completely different thing. Paul, your business at White Cottages was use the tandem, and other companies supply electric bikes. Birdsong baths are at dawn and dusk in the rewilded garden. You know, that's a really lovely thing to sell. Really lovely, but you've got to have a rewilded garden or a special place where you can actually be quiet and listen and plug in. Alrighty. Oh, second slide. That's nice. Okay, so design thinking. Design in the solution, design out the problem. On the left-hand side, the slightly lower set of images off Google Pics is what I put in was eco-friendly kitchens. And the slightly higher slide, I should have spaced them out better, is luxury kitchens, right? So we've got left is eco-friendly, right is luxury. The difference between the two is essentially that the eco-friendly kitchens have pot plants and the luxury ones have slightly less wood in them. So this is really here to illustrate the fact that images are a massive problem for selling sustainability or regeneration or regenerative tourism, whatever you want to call it. It's huge. All of our whole sector has this challenge in terms of our visual communications. In terms of the design piece, whilst you can't see it, the eco kitchens will have, theoretically, I'm sure they've been done very well, more design features to help people do the right thing without causing them an inconvenience. In the luxury kitchens, you're more likely to have just one place to put the waste because it's convenient, because they haven't thought about the anxiety that people increasingly have. So that's one of the things that you need to think about. From a design thinking point of view, try and remove anxiety as your people experience their stay from every single point that you possibly can, from paper-free to check-ins to traveling by train, and what the transfers are like, what kind of information you're giving them at certain points so that they can make those decisions, to all the way through to the waste setups in the house, to how the air conditioning is, the heating, can they open the windows, have the windows got blackout blinds, do they know that in the summer they can actually buffer the house from the heat by pulling down the blinds in the daytime and then open it up at night to let the heat out and to let the air through like they do in countries like Australia. So you can actually significantly, if you take responsibility for this as an owner and as an agency, absolutely, to inspire and to support your owners in this learning, you can really make a massive difference. I can give you an example here of how at New Forest Escapes we set up a cleaning, set up our cleaning situation. So we took responsibility, went, right, we don't want to use horrible pollution, we're going to change our products. And we ran a 6-month project with our cleaners to test what they thought, what we thought, what new products were coming on the market, to come up with a really good narrative on better cleaning products. And it worked. It was fantastic. We have little YouTube videos for how to do this work, and it was hilariously funny. The girls got really into it. We made it a team project, and it worked really, really well. The next one is, this slide, I'm so sorry, this slide should have been first. When it comes to the design thinking, people make decisions in 2 different ways. You've got system 1 thinking and system 2 thinking. And so system 2 thinking is reading the unflat pack information. System 1 thinking is going, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I can't deal with it, I'm just going to try and put it up, okay? And so system 1 thinking would be brushing your teeth. System 2 thinking would be going to buy a toothbrush and toothpaste in the supermarket, okay? And so when people check into a house, when they go into that kitchen the first time they check in, they walk through the door, they are in system 2 thinking. They are a little bit more aware of what's going on. Things are a bit different. How does it all work? A good designer will leave them in that place of having to mentally work for it for a very, very, very short space of time, either because of the way that they've set it up or the signage that they use or the way that they use humor to buffer people along to stay in that slightly harder work mindset. The companies that just go, it's all about convenience, we don't care, we just want them to go straight into system 1 thinking, the relaxation piece will set everything up so that there is, it can all either, they don't have to think about what they're doing, which is actually what you want, but naturally they will move from system 2 thinking into system 1 thinking quite quickly. Your systems need to be set up so beautifully that they can move to system 1 thinking, this quick emotional, oh, the kids are crying, I can't think about it, I'm just going to put the stuff in the bin. They can do that quickly enough that they then don't feel guilty, okay? So you still feel guilty in either of these systems, but you feel more guilty if you're in a hurry and you're doing something because you're not thinking about it, because someone didn't think about it for you. And that's where, if the recycling is not right next to the waste and the composting isn't right next to the recycling, or preferably on the countertop where you scrape the plates off, this is where you get this friction, and this is where people start triggering. Waste is one of the first things that they trigger on. So know the human brain, understand this, help your owners understand this, circulate simple TED Talks. I think there are mini TED Talks, about 7 minutes, they will cover this stuff. Help them understand it, help them understand the setup of things so that you're not asking people to stay in the system 2 thinking, the rationals, for long, because they're on holiday. They don't want to be there. They're going to do whatever it is to get into system 1 thinking. I'm on holiday and relaxing. I don't care. I'm just going to leave the bottle. Not even going to put it in the recycling. Just going to leave it out on the side. Can't bother. Someone else deal with it. Yeah. Makes more work for you and your cleaners. Make sure You know, that's where the dog poo gets put in the wrong bin. And believe me, that's not nice on a hot summer day. So here's me geeking out on rubbish a little bit more, because I actually weighed my guests' rubbish for a 3-month period. And it was amazing what I found out. It was absolutely extraordinary. And I talked to the guests about the rubbish and how triggered some of them were on feeling guilty because the system wasn't set up well. And so we changed the way we set up the rubbish bins and the signage of the bins, and got a much, much higher rate of composting. I think it went to something like 99% straight away. But we also used humour to cut that through. And we talked about our worms having, actually we created a little, a sheet, and on it had things like, our worms deserve names. I'm sure you'll support us in this. Please name your worm. Give them some music that they love. Suggest something for their playlist, and name what you put in the bin, right? Okay. So people would put in like a load of pasta, and then they would put some kind of silly, you know, tunes in, and people engaged with it so beautifully, so quickly. It was fantastic. It really made a difference. Guilt reduction, very, very fast. Happier guests, cleaner recycling, less smelly bins, less, weirdly, messy houses at checkout. I think people respected us more for making an effort. It was a really interesting project. And this is all public on the New Forest Escapes website. The whole thing is there set up for people to steal. Please, please go there and do it. This was an interesting project around rewilding and auditing gardens for what was actually in there. Interestingly, this project was more useful for the owners who were trying to get planning and social awareness within their community for the good things that they were doing than it was particularly for the guests. But it may be that we didn't market it as well as we should have done, but the owners really appreciated it. And it was a lovely project, an educational project for our owners that we did with the Bumblebee Conservation Trust. So the rewilding opportunities that it gives, I'll come on to in a bit. So when it comes down to communication, I'm really hoping this is going to play. Humour is key.
Walrus from space! Sounds like an old 1950s science fiction film. But in fact, we are creating a 21st century detective story. And you could be the detective. We want your help to find lots of walrus. Easy, right? Look.
Okay. Totally brilliant. Absolutely game-changing, apparently, in the pandemic. I had lots of people in Trouble by BCorp who said, yeah, we did this. It was really cool. I got addicted to looking for walruses from space. And actually what they were doing was they were using crowdsourcing intelligence and people to measure the number of walruses and map species decline. And I've since had many conversations with interesting BCorp companies and others. For example, the Thinking Traveller do a conservation project where they ask people on the islands that they're staying in the Mediterranean to take photos of as many butterflies as they can as they're going through. And all of those images are sent to a butterfly conservation charity, which essentially maps the butterflies and the butterfly species decline when they're there. The guests feel amazing about it. Hunting for butterflies is hardly stressful. And the children feel like heroes because they're contributing. So this is one of the examples of how strategic alliances for good projects can really be meaningful. What I love about Walrus from Space is the humor of it, because it's absolutely genius cut through on something which would be like, hey, do you want to count walruses on you know, whatever it's Google Earth? You'd be like, sorry, what? That's ridiculous. But the way they handled it was so beautiful, and really try and lean into that. There's another one here, which is about creating this sense of joy and satisfaction. Use nature and tech. Remember, we came back to that magic triangle of what you can do for your guests and how you can really give them that customer satisfaction. Nature and tech is just a brilliant start point. For example, you've got Merlin apps, bug life apps, stargazing apps. Merlin is probably my favorite one because there are birds all over the world, and you can literally turn it on and get a sound recording of the birds in your area, and it will tell you what birds are around you. And when you are marketing or selling a birdsong bath, for example, that's where you go. right? Doesn't cost anybody anything apart from a bit of peace and quiet and maybe an early morning or a quiet evening. What it does require is some space, some signposting to quiet, beautiful areas if you don't have them on your place, or developing part of your garden or gardens so that they have little places for people to go and a very biodiverse, possibly messy nature area, because nature likes it messy. And then they can contribute to things like the RSPB bird counts here in the UK. Again, we talked about the butterfly surveys, stargazing at night for couples, absolutely brilliant idea. Set them up something to do. These are all free ideas, and you're selling, what you're selling here is you're selling the happiness, the gratitude, the connection, the deeper sensation of what makes you happy without consuming wine, food. It's about the psychological element of connection. That's the bit that you need to focus on in terms of the sustainability and regeneration. Both are the same here. This is the same opportunity with whichever focus you're going for. Make sure you're aware of that. Another way of looking at encouraging that sense of awe in your guests is to go really deep and tiny, go a mile deep, not a mile wide. And I've recently installed these funny little bird feeders on my window right in front of my desk. And the birds have got so used to me sitting there, they will literally come and feed about half a meter from my face. And occasionally I freeze and I look at them and I think, oh my God, your legs are so tiny. And I still have that feeling of awe, which is completely glorious. And it cost me nothing. I think they cost £9 or something like that. A few bugs and seeds. Very, very straightforward. So if you're going to bring that to life more for your guests, put it on the kitchen window. Put it on a window where the birds are permanently seeing people coming in and out, because they'll get desensitized to them. That's really, really important. Give them extra bird food. Put up a bird list. What are the 12 most common birds that you've seen here is a really good one. And then that give them a space to add more. And if they do see more, they'll feel really special about it. Microscopes for children and tiny things, really useful. Allow people to dive into micro worlds of lichen and seeds and grasses and mud and, you know, leftover bits of whatever they find around the place. That's also really special. And you can get those, you can actually encourage people to bring the microscope that's attached to their phone and with their children track what's weird and wonderful in their local area, and then run an Instagram account for it. It's a great idea. It's free. You can run competitions through the year. So humor, coming back to that again, the ask nicely piece. Be positive, be clear. I love this sign here on the right-hand side, which is in Bewley. It's now actually been changed. There is a rogue sign changer, which is really funny because now it's a horse jumping over the white bar in silhouette. My daughter noticed it the other day and I thought it was absolutely hilarious. It just means don't go there, right? It's a no entry sign, but it's brilliantly repurposed into this funny thing. And sustainability or don't messages of any form at all need to be really clearly repurposed into something that is nice, if possible. It's so important. And here are some up. The one on the right is just brilliant. And this is on the back of a security van. And I just loved this. It was so good. The driver carries only $5 and change, 3 black pens, 1 Space Jam DVD, 11 cabbages, and 3 photos of his pet ferret, Daniel. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's just so lovely. But it really breaks through that sense of, oh, I can't do this thing. It's in like, there's no point in robbing the van. But it breaks through this idea of don't do something. And so here are some other examples that I've come across in tourism that have been brilliant. You're on holiday, soak in the bath. Please use bubbles. They help insulate the warm water, keeping you warmer longer. That was from Chris Warren, who runs the My Green Butler project in Australia. And they really do keep you warmer for longer. So encourage people to use them because they want long baths and you want them to take less baths for longer because you want to keep the water cost down. So that's a really positive way of helping explain that. You could also talk about sharing the bath. There are other ways to have fun with that message, you know, provide bath toys for the kids. I saw another one in one of my houses recently, which was Narnia is this way. We don't have a sleigh, but you can hire bikes just around the corner. And that was really sweet. And they'd also gone on to say, don't forget to stop at the amazing cafe on the way. The chocolate cake is blah, blah, best in the world, which is charming, really charming. And so it was said, basically that message says, don't take the car. It doesn't say anything about cars. That's where it gets creative. Then you've got my name your worm idea at the bottom. So those are all little examples. I want to go back. How do I go up? Here we go. We're going up. I want to go up to there. That. Okay. So the overview on here is, first of all, sell the positioning about the person with all of your team. Make it about a personal thing. This is the pristine environment. It's the clean air, the clean pool. It's Bob's glorious water in his swimming pool. It's that level of detail, both big and small. Make sure it's about what's in it for that person. The happy leavers, focus on the gratitude, focus on the volunteering, focus on enabling these things to happen for people. Then you've got the mindset. Your mindset as an owner, if you're focusing on do less bad, be really creative about your messaging and start, as you go through that journey of doing less bad, focusing on, whenever you can, doing better rather than less bad. And that's really, really important, because you'll find cut through in some areas that's easy, and you'll find blocks in other areas that you can't, and it will take you longer. Don't be disheartened. You just got to, it's a creativity problem, this. Yeah, it's not a problem. It's how much creative thinking that you're putting into it. It's how quickly you're going to get where you want to get. Design thinking, know the human brain, system 1, system 2, keep people in. Your goal as a holiday experience provider is to make people get into system 1 as fast as possible, but you need them to go through system 2 thinking to understand how the house works. This is why the humorous signage, etc., is good, because it can pull people back out of system 1 into system 2 to go, oh yeah, hang on a second, I've got to rethink that. Yeah, so the system 2 thinking is important, but don't expect them to read any of the details that you're actually going to provide, but they might read a funny sign. So you need to design it really well. Design in the solution, design out the problem / anxiety. In horse training, we call it make the right thing easy and the wrong thing hard. Make it pleasurable, right? Set the horse or the guests up to get it right every single time. Treat them like horses. Make it, or a bit like training your dog, right? Make the right thing easy for the dog. Make the wrong thing hard for the dog. Sounds easier with a dog. Make it pleasurable for the dog. Because actually that's where everyone on the team will suddenly go, oh, now I get it a little bit more. It's an easier thing to conceptualize if it's about training animals, because actually our guests, lovely as they are, they need that set of arrangements around them to help them do the right thing. Then we look at the fun piece. Use the idea of serious play to be meaningful. This is where you get the, Walrus from Space, the Merlin apps, the fantastic idea about Bob's Pool, the hotels that are growing their own food and offering garden tours, the people who are doing amazing work and putting solar panels and regenerative energy systems on their houses, and then talking about them with huge enthusiasm and explaining what's going on. That's where that seriously playful mindset comes through, and it will come at all levels, right from the top on the big stuff, which will help you reduce your costs, all the way down to the little things, which will help guests feel more satisfied of being there. Ask nicely. Playful and not preachy. I make purposeful typos in my stuff all the time. Okay, it makes people laugh. Do it. It's good. It makes you a human being. Tell people they're getting it right. Yeah. The last ones there I actually haven't put in particularly. I'll leave that for another session because I want to leave some time for questions, because I think we have got time for questions. But it's a pretty good start. And the rest of this, I have got a whole nother talk on what agencies can do and what other people around the world are doing. So I'm really happy to do that, Bob, if that's helpful for you. But I wanted to focus on the guest side of things first, because I haven't spoken about that one so much. So, done. That's a lot of talk.
Thank you. Yeah. As always, Rachel, you don't disappoint, because you always come at these topics with such a new angle that we don't always think about. So it's good to have those fun ways of looking at things. You always know what the subject is and find a humorous way to bring people on board, and that's really, really fantastic. Thank you so much. So yeah, let's open up for questions. I've got loads, but I'd rather hear from other people really in the few minutes we've got. So anybody got a question they want to ask? That would be great.
No, I just want to say, this makes just so much sense. And, fortunately, Cassiola, we are playful. Our last company value is we like coffee and cake.
Nice.
And so we try to be, so this is such a great reminder for us to keep now as we venture more into the sustainability part, is to continue that path of being playful. And also I sit on the board for Experience Kissimmee, our DMO, which I'm going to be the chairperson this year. It's a great reminder that I can take to them too, as we talk to people that coming into our destination and learning about sustainability, is to be playful with your messages. And so that was perfect for me. So thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. It's great that you have that playful element to your business, because when tourism gets serious, people forget. And you do see that in companies sometimes. And I see that sometimes at the big events that I go to, and it's just too corporate. And you're like, guys, you've forgotten. Like, it's okay, this fine, it's about the money. Like, absolutely. But if you are not delivering that playfulness through your teams and through to your guests and due to their experience, then guess what? You're going to be fighting forever for people all the time, because you've got no loyalty. There's no love. And that's why places like Bob get 65% return guests. And he probably, it costs him nothing to do that. So that it's really, really important to remember that playfulness. Absolutely. Yeah. Well done, you. Yeah.
That's a huge point, Rachel.
Sorry, go on, Sean.
Like I say, that's a huge point. We need to learn more of that over here in the States. I mean, that's one of the biggest issues now with VRMA and their presentations. They're just trying to revamp themselves, and people are just tired of seeing the same people, talking heads, and there is no compassion there. There needs to be more touch. So I like that.
Yeah, it makes me sad to see that in some of the big companies. I feel like they've lost their way. We're like,
exactly.
You weren't started like that. Like, what happened? Because how much money do you need to make? Like, I fully appreciate they've got stakeholders and they've got shareholders, they've got a diverse needs, and people want to make as much money as they possibly can in the world. But actually, some of these things, like being playful, actually are more powerful than SEO.
You're right.
Like, way more powerful, because if your kids want to go back to the same place, you've frankly got a whole year of trying to say no, which is going to be so painful for a parent that they're just going to go to the same place. Yeah. No matter what SEO happens, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, Rush, you're in a great spot there in Disney World. So, I mean, you know what they do and that personal touch and how to bring people in.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
Most certainly. Yeah, most certainly.
Yeah. Other questions or thoughts?
Yeah, did you have a question, Paul? Oh, okay, no worries.
You can't speak. Yeah, I think just picking up on something you were saying. I mean, there are so many things in the presentation. Really, we could talk about it for such a long time. But I think one of the two things that really struck me were, well, of the many, was this idea that we're trying to sell hedonism, and we're also trying to promote sustainability, and they seem like they're diametrically opposed, a bit like the lentils and the cake, as you were obviously bringing out. And it's difficult, isn't it? As you say, with photos as well, to present the fact that you're eco without, lots of pot plants and I don't know what else you would use. So it's really, really challenging, because you want to tell people that you're trying to do the right thing for the planet and for the guests and for the business, but trying to do it in a way that's fun and interesting. And I mean, the way we do it, and we don't get it right a lot of the time, is to try to and you did touch on it in your presentation, is let them feel that they've already done their bit in part by choosing to stay with us, because we're doing A, B, C, and D, so they don't have to think about it. So the fact that they've chosen us rather than company B or company C is that's taken a lot of that guilt away, and we want them to go further, but they've already taken that first big step, and we always try and thank them for that and remind them of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where B Corp and some of the certifications that are really pushing this level of integrity are coming through and delivering. And I see that the work that the Travel by B Corp companies are doing behind the scenes is really brave leadership and pushing into this. I wish they were a bit more playful with it. I wish they were involving branding organizations to dial up the creativity like Disney do. Honestly, I think that's a real opportunity that a lot of companies aren't spending enough money on. Whether it be illustration or mini TED Talks from the owner or the founder, etc., and other ways of actually bringing in purpose to it as a lived experience for the levels that people want to see it at and engage at, depending on where they're at in their own story. But I think that's a huge opportunity. Yeah, definitely, Bob. One of the things I just want to say before I finish was that, I don't want to say that sustainability is a bad word. It's not. But I think over the next year or two, many, many more people are going to be talking about the regenerative element of tourism rather than sustaining where we're at now. Sustainability is a bit of a dicey word because it kind of assumes that we've already got to where we need to be, but we really haven't. And when you start looking at it on a sales piece, that level of guilt messaging really comes out very quickly when you talk about sustainability, not as a descriptive word, but as a delivered experience. That's quite tough. So I know owners really feel that. Agencies that say, our owners don't want to engage, or like, well, you're probably selling it on the wrong vibe. Like, that's where you need to start thinking about it as a more integrated experience.
Yeah. And I think what would be really nice, and we can pick up this conversation at another point, Rachel, is I think it would be lovely if you've got the time to work with us, with Amit, and create a blog that puts what you've presented today into a written blog that we can also share with our providers and with our subscribers. That would be really interesting as well.
No worries.
Talk to you about that.
Yeah, and I'd love to share with you more of the work that the Travel by BCorp group are doing, which will start becoming more public very shortly. But there is some really interesting, brave work that is being done by groups of people who are, struggling with difficult, chewy problems and really on the front end of innovation in travel, because, we've got a lot of issues around removing carbon from our system. And there are masses of brilliant cut-throughs that are going on, that actually some of the work that I do for Alistair Mallins at Luxury Cottages, which we've created the Sustainable Practice Guide, some of those will come out there, particularly for agencies, actually. So watch out for that one. It's good.
Sounds like we need to get you on later in the year to do a second presentation.
Yeah. Well, maybe we could do a co-presentation. How's that? Maybe Alistair and I, or maybe some of the other companies. Tessa at Saw Days is amazing. We love a bit of Tessa.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll try and get her on too. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Okay, we're up to time, so we do need to try and stop now. So I really want to thank you, Rachel. It's been superb as always.
Yeah, thank you.
Always learn something from you, and I know this is going to be one of our most popular webinars when it goes up on YouTube tomorrow. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people wanting to see it, and we'll get a lot of comments and suggestions from those people too. So thank you very much. Thank you for people who attended.
Thank you for your time, Sean. Thank you, Ross. Take care.
Thank you.
And we'll see you all soon. Thank you, Amit.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Amit. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Ciao
Bye.
for now.
Bye.